I'm Robin Gagnon.
And I'm Eric Gagnon, and we sell restaurants. We started the nation's largest restaurant brokerage firm, We Sell Restaurants, over a decade ago. You can find us online at WeSellRestaurants.com.
We are also on your radio once a week with the leading authorities in the restaurant business, talking about subjects trending in the industry. Tweet your own questions while we're on the air. Our Twitter handle, you know it, it's Sell Restaurants. Post on our Facebook page. You can find us at Facebook.com, We Sell Restaurants. And if we don't get to your questions, we'll follow up on social media.
Our goal is to satisfy your appetite for acquisition, feed the need for restaurant reality, and serve up a recipe for business success. If you have any ideas or any comments for the show, feel free to email me. My email is Eric, E-R-I-C, at WeSellRestaurants.com.
Today we are talking about emerging franchises. This is a great time to become a franchise owner. Franchises are expected to add 221,000 new jobs in 2014, and with 2.6% employment growth, franchises are adding jobs faster in 2014 than in 2013 and also outpacing projected total employment growth in the U.S. Are you ready to franchise your restaurant? Well, we're asking those in the know about critical first steps you should take before undergoing this application. Emerging brands will tell us what they would do differently if they've already launched a brand. Our experts range from a public relations expert helping successful and emerging brands to restaurateurs who are on the road to franchising now.
And to kick off the show today, our first guest is Brad Fishman. He is the CEO of Fishman PR. Brad has devoted the majority of his career to not only building Fishman Public Relations into one of the largest and most respected PR agencies of its kind, but also promoting franchising as a business model and helping educate franchise system about effective lead generation strategies. Always seeking to stay on top of the latest trend, people, news, and legislation impacting the franchise industry, Brad can be found as a participant or known present at nearly every franchising event domestically or overseas. As one of the most well-connected individuals in the franchise industry, Brad has spent more than 20 years helping franchise system develop franchisee lead generation and consumer awareness campaigns that help them achieve their desired growth. As a successful entrepreneur who knows how to operate a business, Brad has earned the trust and credibility of other entrepreneurs in the industry. His professional involvement in franchising includes sitting on the boards of numerous companies and organizations, as well as serving as a past chairman of the International Franchise Association, the IFA, Franchise Supplier Forum, as well as serving as a past member of the IFA's board and executive board of the IFA membership international committees. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate and franchising, especially emerging franchisor, is a passion for me. As many of you know, we just had a conference in the future working with emerging. We had about 250 people attending the event, and it turned out to be a fabulous conference hearing what emerging franchisors have to say about everything going on in the space.
Great. And our second guest, Zach Current, was actually an attendee at that event. He's with Custom Fuel Pizza. Zach is the vice president of Custom Fuel Pizza. He lives to share the best things in life with everyone. Zach has found that pizza, something you eat when you're in a good mood or something you share with people you love, is one of those best things in life. Zach has worked in restaurants his entire career. According to him, the most important thing he's learned is proper presentation and hard work, and a common goal of serving great food, working as a team, gets you far. In his role as VP, he's motivated by the fact that you can't deliver anything great, such as friendliness, service, and quality, without a system that works. Accordingly, his mission each day is to ensure that every one of his associates is provided with the ingredients, tools, and direction needed to make great pizza for their guests and create great opportunities for themselves. That sounds like a recipe for a great emerging franchisee. Welcome aboard, Zach.
Thank you. I'm glad to be with you all today.
Great. Thanks for having. We're glad to have you. Our third guest, but not least, Mike Branigan is the VP of Marketing and Product Innovation for Bruster's Real Ice Cream and co-brand also with Nathan's Hot Dogs. Mike has more than 25 years of marketing, public relation, and product innovation experience with revenues ranging from $23 million to $322 million over his trajectory in the industry. His track record of performance and leadership has led companies to great success, incredible turnaround, experiencing 7 years out of 8 of positive comparable store sales increase and displaying increase of 17% versus previous years as Sizzlers USA, the most significant regeneration effort in his career. Most recently, Michael has led the Bruster's Real Ice Cream marketing efforts into their 6th straight quarter of positive comparable store sales in more than a decade. He is also part of the executive management team piloting the launch of a new emerging franchise brand with or without Famous Philly Eats, a brand new entry into the QSR category. Michael is a creative visionary with discipline and focus, leading franchise companies to achieve set strategies, brand repositioning, and strategic growth. In addition, Michael is an exemplary manager, leading, motivating, and creating a culture where people are team-oriented, accountable, and understand what it takes to succeed, to be a great franchise organization. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me on.
I tell you what, some great resumes this morning, and I want to just start out for defining for our audience, because we have would-be restaurateurs, current restaurateurs, and foodies listening, exactly what is an emerging franchisee. You hear different things thrown around the industry. Is there a standard for a number of units, a financial measurement like royalty, self-sufficiency, some sort of growth pattern, or what is it that says this brand is emerging versus established? Brad, why don't you kick off, and then we'll get everyone to weigh in.
Well, it's a very interesting question you brought up because, and we discuss this question all the time, and what people define as emerging is, do they have under 10 units? Do they have under 20 units? And you'll hear people say emerging brand could be 75 units until they are self-sufficient on royalties. So it's really defining, to me, a brand that has no franchise units but's got 75 corporate units or even 20 corporate units, to me, it's not really emerging. They obviously have a financial wherewithal to go out and franchise their brand. They might not understand franchising yet, but they understand the restaurant business, and that to me is very important. So that's why I said the definition is really across the board, and what people try to look at is the most important thing is you're not using your franchise fees that helps pay the bills, is the way I try to describe it. That's the best, to me, it's the best definition. And, you're going to hear from all different types of people.
I love that answer. If you're not using your franchise fees to pay your bills. Love that. So, Mike, why don't you weigh in for us?
I think most importantly, the consumer will tell you what is an emerging brand, like Chipotle and many other, the QSR concepts right now that are out there. They're defining what emerging brands and franchisors are. I think first of all, you'll see how you build in your infrastructure and how well you'll be able to handle franchising. It's not as simple as many people think it is. I think first and foremost that you really have to have a very service-oriented group that will really accommodate the needs of prospective franchisees. And I think another really key component to this, and I've learned this over the years, is that really, your first 10 franchisees that you bring on board are critical to the growth and success of the franchise organization. This has really got to be a key partnership between the company as well as the franchise owners. That's everything from menu development, facility development, targeted trade area development. Importantly, that this is a partnership as an emerging brand as you go forward and grow. That's at least, the learnings that we've had. I think also when you start to look at, your growth patterns, you have to stay local. Trying to build brands when you're in Philadelphia and you have prospective franchisees that have a keen interest for California, Arizona, Seattle, the burden that puts on the franchise organization makes it extremely difficult to manage from 3,000 miles away as a small emerging company and franchise organization. We are a franchise organization, and we're very clear about what we are and what we do and our, service initiatives, and, knowing that our guest is truly the franchisee. So as an emerging brand, really taking those components, honing them down in the most simplistic format to take public is really, really key.
I love that answer. Eric, I think you wanted to follow up, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Brian mentioned a conference a little bit ago, and Zach was an attendee, and Robin and I had a chance to be at the conference as well as young franchisors. And, it was amazing to see how, a lot of resources were pulled together and everything. And Zach, what have you learned, that was very important for you in the phase of growth and you learned over there that you need to use and experience, some of the experiences you had and some of the things you learned at the conference that was helpful for you?
Well, I wanted to follow up on what Michael and Brad said because I think, and it goes right into what you just asked me, was that what I've been amazed with here over the course of the last 6 months is that the more knowledge that you seek out, really it comes back to you exponentially. And by attending that conference and meeting some of the world leaders in the franchise space, it's made it clear to me, to Michael's point, is that what defines an emerging brand, an emerging concept for us, what it's done is that it makes each and every decision that we make in the infancy of this process more important. And we've given more weight to saying, well, we could just franchise. We've got people that are interested in Seattle or California or Arizona, whatever it is. But what we've learned from people that have done this, for the course of their entire careers is that that's not really a very smart decision as an emerging brand. People that are established and are able to use their royalty resources to continue to grow and branch out, that might be a good decision for them, but it could end up being a very bad decision for us where we are. And we're right there in the middle with what Brad had mentioned, that emerging can be defined a lot of different ways. We've got 14 successful units now of our fuel pizza and our custom fuel pizza brand. So we're not really an emerging company, but we're an emerging franchise. And so we're able to take a step back, look at things from a logical perspective, and make sure that these decisions that we're making now are going to be good decisions, 5 years down the road.
Mike, and you made a comment when, and I'm sitting here, I'm sitting at my desk looking at things, I'm going, you mentioned something that people don't realize how important is. Your first, 5 to 10 franchisees really are going to define your organization because think about it, someone has 5 different marriages going on at the same time. And if one doesn't work, it really affects everyone in the organization because they take such a big part of the time. Any franchisee who's going to join your organization, they're going to check and talk to your existing franchise base to find out what you are as a franchise organization. And it's so important, and that's why it goes to another important element you brought up with local. And going back to it is, it's easier to give the attention to a franchisee when I always tell people, a 5-hour drive from your existing corporate base. Yep. And because this way, if there's something wrong, and there's going to be something wrong somewhere along the road, they might not have this. It's easier with suppliers. Someone might not show up. They might have a problem. You at least can drive in a car and say, okay, we're going to give you all the support we need to really make you a successful franchisee. Yes.
That's great. Now, Brad, you were a major sponsor and organizer of this recent Emerging Franchisor Conference. Why do you feel it's important to assemble this first-class team of established franchisors along with newbies at a conference like that? Tell us a little bit about some of the activities and how they will help emerging brands.
Well, and I did this conference with Lane Fisher, with Fisher Zucker Law Firm out of Philadelphia, and both of us have worked. We've been very actively involved in the franchising space, and I'll be honest, it's been very important to our careers, and we'd like to give back a little bit to the community. It's meant so much to us, and it's wonderful to see existing franchisors. We don't want them to make the same mistakes a lot of other people make, and if we can help them save some dollars, make some critical decisions, as we discussed here, it's hard when someone says, I love your concept. You're based in Philadelphia, and I'd love to open one in Seattle. It's hard to say no to a lot of people to that check. But they might realize, what our job is to realize that, hey, unless this is a very successful restaurant operator, when I say there's a franchisee who loves your concept, it might be the best thing ever you said to turn that check down. So we try to give them tips, let people know we're discussing lead generation. Where should you spend the money? These are the things that have worked for other organizations. So we try to, giving everyone back and make them successful. Hey, the more successful all the franchise community is, it's better for everyone. I mean, there's lots of regulations going down, and no matter how well you do, there's going to be some situations where franchisees are not going to be successful. And but so these are some of the things what you should look for, and it gives everyone a good idea of hearing from experienced restaurant the pitfalls and the successes they did have.
That's a great answer, great advice. Zach, Mike, the franchise world is kind of unusual in the way that a lot of veterans in the industry are so willing to share information, whether you're in the same, you're another pizza concept or whether you're another burger concept. People are very willing to share and talk and mentor younger franchise people instead of a lot of their industries. You see somebody like that, they see as competitors and they want you to go out of business. And this is kind of a different way. Do you guys see that? And what is the relationship that y'all have with some of the people in the industry like that?
Michael, you want to start us off?
Sure. Well, sharing information and being a good listener is, I think, the key to any good manager. Number one. Number two is, I've tried to, mentor and bring people along as, I was helped along the way, through the early part of my career. There are certain things that, taking other people's information and doing with it as you see fit is really going to be in your own disciplines and how you use that information. I don't mind sharing information because if we're successful, I've always welcomed other competitors into the different trade areas if that's the case, because it just, as far as I'm concerned, brings more people into the trade area. But I think really, guys, the whole basis of this conversation is really staying as disciplined as possible to, like what Brad had said before about, you learn certain things. Very, very key executives within the industry tell you this is important, you need to focus on this, and this is what you need to do. I'm telling you this out of experience. I'm not telling this so you can, go try something different. That is one of the best parts about our business and our industry. Pretty much everybody knows everybody, and we try and help each other along.
Zach, I totally understand that question and the point of view that Eric brought, and also kind of what both of our other guests are reinforcing, because it's been our experience as an emerging brand ourselves that people in the franchise world are so very giving. Has that been your experience as a new brand as well?
Well, I think that the franchisor, almost by definition, is someone that understands that in order to really grow, in order to leave a positive mark on the world, that you can't take on the world by yourself, that you're willing to share your knowledge, you're willing to share your systems, you're willing to, give up a part of yourself for the greater good of your company or the greater good of another franchisee. And I've seen that time and time again, and from Brad and a lot of his associates, and that at the Emerging Franchisee Expo, that point was proven over and over again, whether it was another pizza franchisor or just any person in that world. They seem like really just part of their giving nature to stay into that and not to say, well, we're going to keep it all for ourselves, but to be able to take something that you've been able to prove and pass that along to someone else seems to be part of the dialogue that's never going to go away in the franchise world.
That's great news.
Brad, I want to ask you a question. You've worked with hundreds of brands in your career in the franchise space, and many of them were startup and stuff like that. So what advice would you give these guys when they start? There's a million things to do, consider, financial, everything. What is the best advice would you give to someone like that?
Well, and I think that the biggest problem a lot of franchisors come as, an emerging brand is it's something that might kind of, two things. Number one is they're not financially ready for it because of what it's going to take to go into the industry. And I've seen time and time and time again that I was working with an emerging franchise concept, and very successful one from that when I said that they had a lot of corporate units, but they didn't realize the time and money it was going to take to really establish. And basically the wife came down and said they closed the franchise organization because she said she was in the franchise, she wanted to become a franchisor to make more money, not make less money. So people have to realize it does take time to establish a brand. All of a sudden you are not going to be Subway with 30,000 plus units.
Right.
And that's the biggest issue. And the other question, and this is coming from someone whose father, before he even did this, went into started a franchisor, and he eventually walked away from it because no one ever really gave him a good idea of how much time franchisees really take. They have problems, they have issues, and as my father said, he goes, he was running a successful business, and he wanted to continue it because that's what he loved to do. And no one warned him when, he hired a consultant, and that's a big thing. There's lots of consultants out there, and they're selling services, but make sure the ones that you are working with actually you like and you trust.
I think
advice.
Very, very good advice. And Mike, do you want to follow up on that? Do you have some words of wisdom as well?
Importantly, everybody, this is, it's a different mindset. Everybody keeps talking about corporate stores, and you've built a 11, 12, 15 units. You're now ready to franchise. Well, your corporate makeup is a lot different at that point than it is from just your boots on the ground operators that have opened up these 12 or 15 stores. You need to have a service gene. I mean, you are there to service franchise owners, and it's a different mindset than what was labor last week. You are there to accommodate the needs of the franchisees, and it's a different way that you operate your business when you take that on. You have the legalities, you have the distribution, all the different DCs across the country that you have to set up to really make this viable. So it's not just something where you just say, we're going to go into franchising next week. I've seen, or one of the companies that I worked with had 2 units. He was making $1 million a year per store, and then opened a third and made another $1 million. He was making $3 million net a year and decided to franchise. And then at that point took it up to 30 units franchised, and I think that probably it was worth less money than it was when he was making $3 million at the time that he started the company. So, you talked about Lane Fisher, who is, one of the best and brightest in the whole industry when it comes to FDDs and understanding franchise law, and you really have to have a good understanding of how your business is going to operate at that point as a emerging franchisor. It's not simple, and it's something that you have to take very seriously, and that's why I keep throwing in this word discipline, is that your mindset has got to be very disciplined in the way that you're going to operate your company on a go-forward basis, truly the day you sign that first franchisee.
Most people don't realize Subway, with their 30,000-plus units, does not have one corporate-owned unit.
That's right.
They are in the business of running a franchise system and servicing. McDonald's is selling a lot of their corporate units. Burger King is down to less than 1% of all existing units worldwide of actually owning them. They're in the franchising business, period.
Hold that thought, because we're going to go into a break, but this is fascinating. This is Eric and Robin Gagnon, the Restaurant Brokers. We are talking about emerging franchises today. They may be small, but they could be national names tomorrow. Stay tuned as we satisfy your appetite for acquisition, beat the need for restaurant reality, and serve up a recipe for business success.